News First, Newsline.
Hello there, very good evening. Welcome to another edition of Newsline. In recent times here in Sri Lanka, the economic crisis has caused much strife to the people here in Sri Lanka. But the worst possible result of the economic crisis is to have our fellow citizens dying. And that is happening right now. It was happening last year due to fuel queues and many other issues. But now, here in Sri Lanka, it's happening because the medicine that we use here in Sri Lanka, or the medicine that is being procured by the government, by government institutions, is in a way killing people. So today on Newsline, we are focusing on this very, very serious issue that is affecting all Sri Lankans across the board. And to discuss these matters and more, we've got with us Dr. Hansamal Weerasuriya. He's a General Committee member of the Government Medical Officers Association, or the GMOA. Thank you very much, Doctor, for joining us on our program this evening. The issue is very clear. People are dying, and people are dying because of the medicine that they are taking. Now, when I say this general statement, it's not that all medicine in Sri Lanka are killing people. Specific types of medicine have been identified, and they have been earmarked as certain reasons for the deaths, for a few deaths that happened during the past 2 weeks. Is this an acceptable situation since we procure so much of medicine into the country? Is it all right? Is it correct to say that, you know, maybe a few bad apples could be there here and there, and you could expect a few people to die? Is that acceptable?
Actually, talking about this situation, we all know that we are having a large socio-economic crisis. But saying that, if we come to a direct answer, we cannot accept these kind of things to be happen. So, as a responsible trade union and an organization, as a Government Medical Officers Association, we always stood for our members, our doctors, as well as the general public. So we have identified, we have our committees there, so we have identified a lot of issues happening, going through these procurement procedures and all the other things that are being relevant to these drug issues. And also we have got we have seen the media showing that there are several issues with the drugs, and there have been issues that have been reported in eye hospital and DGH Nuwara, District General Hospital Nuwara, in other hospitals as well. So there are a lot of things are happening in Ragama Hospital. So there are a lot of things have been happened, and so those things are totally unacceptable. So as GMOA, we have come up with solutions, not just now or after these issues. So since 2022, in the beginning of 2022, we have been showing these things can happen as a result of this drug shortage and the drug mafia underlying that who are trying to take an advantage of this socio-economic crisis. So we have pointed out all these issues, and we have come up with 10-fold proposals, and we have even presented it to the President as well, Honorable President, and also we have gone to the WHO, World Health Organization. We have complained about these issues, but still we don't see anything realistic happening in the ground. That's the problem.
Doctor, now when we speak of these kind of issues, now say for example a basic political issue, people would have an opinion, people could go and do something, people could go and protest. Say for example the sale of national assets. If people are against that, people could go and protest. That's something that we can really understand. But when it comes to matters like this that are very specific to a certain profession, you need some sort of expertise. I mean, people can't go out on the street and be protesting against the import of certain drugs because people don't know about this. And at the end of the day, the people have entrusted the government and government institutions to import these kind of drugs, to regulate these kind of drugs. There are various government institutions that are supposed to maintain the health sector in this country. And the fact that people are now dying when they go to a hospital to seek treatment is just sympathetic and unacceptable, to say the very least. But against all of these issues taking place, of course, one of the highest authorities in the health sector here in Sri Lanka is the Minister of Health. And at the end of the day, the buck stops there, if I may put it quite frankly. So do you see that there is any responsibility being taken on the part of the Minister in bringing some urgent measures to address this issue? Because this is not something small. This is not something that can be disregarded as a minor mishap.
Yeah. Actually, if we are going to describe about the current situation, so there are several 4 things that I want to highlight, because this is not merely a simple thing, because there is drug shortage in one hand. Then there is, as you correctly mentioned, there is a huge problem of some drugs, the quality of some drugs that are being distributed here. So then there is price hike in the other side. So that's a big killing issue for the general public. And also the human resource, the lack of human resource and the brain drainage, all these things are being now happening in Sri Lanka. So all these things directly affect the healthcare system in Sri Lanka. So ultimately, the problems and the issues are being directly going to the general public, and they are the people who are going to be affected. So when it comes to the quality of this drug, so we as the GMOA, since a long time we were telling that there should be a proper laboratory established to assure the quality of drugs that are being imported from other countries, that we were highlighting since a long time. But still it has not been a reality in the ground level. So the problem is then when we use, as an example, when a drug comes to our country, then they should get a proper NMRA approval, National Medicines Regulatory Authority, from there. So after that only we get the proper they get the proper authority to distribute that drug throughout the country. But the issue is now, because of this lack of the socio-economic crisis, there are a lot of problems with these proper tender procedures, and there are a lot of emergency purchasings that are being done. So by doing these emergency purchasings, because we are doing those things in a hurry, so this can affect badly to the quality of these drugs. And also we get some news about saying that even in previous governments, or there are several companies and traders that have been blacklisted by the Ministry of Health, but under some other names they are coming again and trying to produce drugs to the market. And we know there were several situations in eye hospital previously, and Noorali DGH, there were some eye drops that has been given to the poor patients, and there were very unfortunate incidents that have happened. And when we do the proper investigations, those providers are not being registered in the NMRA as well. They have been, sometimes they were found that they were cancelled. So these type of things are being happened in the this system. And not only that, not only in the NMRA, because there are several other organizations, there are a set of organizations that are responsible in this procedure. The Ministry of Health, then State Pharmaceutical Corporation, SPC, then SPMC, State Pharmaceutical Manufacturing Corporation, and the NMRA, and the MSD, that means Medical Supplies Division. So to smoothly function the whole this distribution procedure and this drug issue, all these institutions should function properly, and they should have a proper communication with each other. But we don't see these kind of things are happening, because that is well highlighted in 2022 in Auditor General reports. As an example, I can show you one report. I have the report as well. In 2022, there's a drug called nitrofurantoin. It has been ordered. The order was placed to the SPMC, and after that is the order is placed after the whole procurement procedure. Then after the order is placed, there are 2 months that is being passed, then only after 2 months only the authorities get to know that SPMC is not producing this drug, manufacturing this nitrofurantoin drug. So that kind of a miscommunication is there. So that not the GMO is saying, this is the Auditor General report that is saying. So we have highlighted all these issues, and we have come up with these tenfold proposals, and we have suggested regular reviews and the ways to have proper communications, to make a proper committee with all the representatives from all these places, but still these are not happening.
So, Dr. Hansamal, we've got a question from one of our viewers. Now, you were speaking about these deaths that took place during the past few months, at least, here in Sri Lanka, where patients who are seeking medical help go to a hospital and they get medicine and they die as a result of the medicine that they've taken. So, is there any room for legal action, at least, to be filed against the international suppliers, the local agents who imported these drugs into the country? Like, what are the consequences here in Sri Lanka of importing substandard medicine?
That's the serious issue. That's the thing that even our in our press conferences, that is the main thing that we are highlighting. So there are a lot of presidential inquiries, that is commissions that have been appointed, and lots and lots of commissions that have been appointed in previous days also. There are culprits also that have been found, but still they are in the positions, in the higher positions in all these places like SPC, NMR, SPMC. In each and every place, there are people who found guilty for these things. So, but
guilty as in underhand dealings, corruption, fraud, those kind of matters.
Underhand dealing, corruptions, and malpractices, miscommunication. All there are people who are responsible for these kind of things are there. But
so, Doctor, just to clarify now, when you say that there are people responsible for these, there are two sides of it. You could be leveling an allegation, or it has to be a charge that has been proven against them. Which is it? Is it an allegation or proven charges?
There are allegations as well, and there are proven incidents as well. So I have not brought these commission reports. So if we can go through those commission reports, we can clearly see they have mentioned these things have been happened, and these people are the culprits.
Right.
So
these just for the benefit of the people who are watching us right now, because there's so much of corruption and fraud taking place in Sri Lanka, and there are multiple reports, especially I think if you peruse through the Auditor General's reports, there might be a lot of conclusions that have been drawn on fraud and corruption that's taking place here in Sri Lanka. But are these reports public, or are these just for internal review? Does the general public have access to this? Do you know any information on those?
Yeah, even the problem is these some of these reports, the general public can access to these reports.
Some of these reports they can?
They can, but people don't know how to access into these reports and how to get this information to him.
It's not published on the web, is it?
Yeah, some of them have been published in the web, and some of these things have been clearly published in island-wide newspapers as well, and in mass media also they have covered these things. The problem is, even as the Government Medical Officers Organization, we are trying our way best to help people. We are fighting our own battle on behalf of our people, but still we are not in a position to make these things happen, because there is very the authorized people, they are very slow, and they are not taking proper decisions, and they are not taking the actions. So even though how much we push, we can't change the system. The system is corrupted. So we are trying our way best to do things, because since you can see that we have come up with a complaint to the World Health Organization as well. So we have in the 2022, in the mid of 2022, we have complained. In the 2023 January, again we have written to the WHO through the country representation. But still, we are trying our way best to tell that means the problems that Sri Lanka people are facing. And because the issue is the local authorities, they are not hearing. They wait like deaf people. So that we have to go to, we are compelled to go to the WHO, even to the international media as well. So that's the pathetic situation in Sri Lanka. Then not only that, because when it comes to the things that are happening, the pathetic things that are happening to people, not only because of this quality issue, due to the drug shortage as well. As an example, if we take patients with kidney diseases, CKD, we say chronic kidney disease, then heart patients, as we lay people say, with ischemic heart disease, who are awaiting cardiac surgeries and who are awaiting stenting, then especially the children and adult people who are having cancers. So these medicines are also, a lot of these medicines are also not available. As an example, if we go for the counts, in 2022 September, there were around 90 drugs which were mentioned as zero as counts, and it was 120 in December, 115 2023 March. Now it's around 190. 190 drugs are mentioned as zero in the list. So that is not acceptable. As an example, it is not available in the faraway hospital like Kalmune.
So when you say the count of the drug is zero, that means zero at national hospitals or zero?
No, zero in Sri Lanka.
Zero in Sri Lanka. So private pharmacies, you can't
Private
find
pharmacies they might have, because we don't have a way to
proper inventory on that. But you definitely can't find those at a government hospital.
Yeah, the problem is that's definitely we can't find in government hospital. That is zero. The problem is when a patient goes to a clinic or to a ward or to a OPD setup, if we can't find this kind of a drug, so he has to go to the outside. So we are compelled to write the drug for the benefit of the patient. If you can, please take it from the outside. That's what we are saying. But when he goes to the outside, the price hike is totally unbearable, because we all know the prices went up to, sometimes some drugs went up to 300%, 400% like that. So totally that is unacceptable. Now, in the end of the June, there were about price reduction of 16% for about 60 drugs, and that's a good initiation, but that's not enough at all.
But then compared to the price hike, of course, of about 300%, like once you have a price hike of 300% and then reduce it by 16%, that is really not much. Of course, the health sector crisis here in Sri Lanka is very real. And of course, we can't find answers to these overnight. Maybe these issues have been existing in the health sector for quite a lot of time, but the economic crisis really shed light and revealed all of these issues, and now it's there, out there, and people are dying. The actual magnitude of it, and as I promised before the commercial break, we'll take a look at some of the solutions that are available at this very critical juncture. Now, Doctor, I understand that we can't find solutions to these matters overnight, but let's just touch upon a few issues that you mentioned before the commercial break. One of the issues that you highlighted was the lack of a proper procurement procedure and also these emergency purchases, as they call it, I believe, under Section 109 of the Principal Act that governs these purchases. So what really is the solution here now? Emergency purchases, we know in Sri Lanka, spot purchases, they call it as well. That's an easy way to make a quick buck. The commissions are high. The regulatory procedure is almost non-existent. And as far as medicine is concerned, these medical drugs are not subject to the entire testing procedure that it would usually be subject to, and as such, there is a higher risk of these drugs being substandard, contaminated, and eventually resulting maybe in the death of a patient. Now, patients don't know about this, Doctor. So how can this issue be resolved? What is the suggestion of the GMOA?
Actually, to this total drug crisis, we have come up with practical solutions. We have been saying this since the mid of 2022. For this particular issue, this emergency purchasing, what we suggest is the emergency purchasing should be in a minimal level. So what the minister from the Minister of Health, he has made a statement in the latter half of the 2022, as he will regularize this issue, and this would go for a proper tender procedure, and all the drugs will be, the procurement procedures will be done under proper regular tender procedures within 6 months of time. So he asked for 6 months of time to make it a reality.
When did he ask for the 6 months?
At the end of 2022, around December.
So December 2022.
Yeah, with the meeting with GMOS also. He said the same thing. But what the issue is, the minister also doing these media things, and he's giving the statements to the media and trying to be a hero in the media. But the problem is, it's not been, that means, reality in the ground level. But now it's almost 6 months have been passed. But
6 months have passed, long past.
Yeah, long past. But still, it's not a reality. That's the problem, that we are already highlighting the issue, but still the emergency purchasings are happening. That's the issue that we are highlighting. So this has to be stopped at some point.
Well, Doctor, I think a politician going back on his promises is not something that would surprise at least an everyday Sri Lankan watching us right now. But on getting these policy reforms through, judging by what really has happened in Sri Lanka, just having discussions and accepting promises and extensions of time, do you think that's really going to work? And now, since 6 months have passed since the Minister of Health had asked for this time, and 6 months has already passed. So what's the next step of the GMOA? What are you guys planning on doing?
The issue is, the decision-making body is the parliament, and there are people, there are authorities to make the decisions. The GMOA is then we know we are a trade union and a responsible organization for the members as well as for the public. So what we can do is, we can't make the decisions in the country, but we can support the authorities, and we can give our 100% support for the authorities as technical expertise.
Definitely. I mean, the GMOA as a trade union, as almost a professional body of medical practitioners, the GMOA is also duty bound to, of course, push the government, push our policymakers in the right direction. Now, we saw the same things happening last year with legal professionals when multiple people were arrested. The Bar Association intervened. Many lawyers, professional legal practitioners went to court, represented them, and got them out on bail. I think given that trend is continuing these past few days, there were certain incidents of wrongful arrests being made under certain draconian acts that bar these people from getting bail. But those were discussed in court, facts were presented, and they were released. So in that context, do you think the GMOA is doing enough to push our policymakers to solve these issues? Because when it comes to the Bar Association and a person, there is also death involved, but mostly it's confinement of freedom. At least those people are alive. But when it comes to these medical issues, this is their life. Yeah. They could die, they could be permanently handicapped. The consequences are much, much more dire. So against such a backdrop, do you think that the GMOA is doing enough? And if not, what more can you do?
The issue is, we think that we are doing our best here, because there are two sides. So we have to deal with the administration aspect and also the patient care. So as the GMOA, the vast majority of doctors, more than 95% of the doctors are our members. So we are holding regular meetings and review meetings, and we are trying our best to optimize the patient care as well. So if some problem arises like this quality failure or drug issues, we get together and we discuss, so how can we provide the best care to the patients. So how can we avoid these kind of mishaps in the future? So we are taking these decisions, and then as the general committee we are taking crucial decisions. Then we go to the administrative aspects and we are suggesting these things have to be done. Even we are going to straight trade union actions as well. In the February and March of 2023 we have, that means we have made black weeks, and we hold the black band campaigns and protest against these issues with the drugs and drug shortage. We came onto the streets and we protested and we shouted against on behalf of the patients. But we can't. That means we can't. We did the trade union actions, but we can't drag it, because ultimately the patients will suffer from that as well. So we are in a critical point. So we have to balance both the arms. And what we can do is we can make the quality suggestions and we can give it to the ruling parties and the authorities and health ministry, the ministers and all the parties, and we can make suggestions and we can urge them to make it happen and make them these things a reality. As an example, we suggest a small thing. We have been suggesting this since the 2022, now more than 1.5 years, to make a help desk in the health ministry to organize these kind of things, donations, and to mediate these kind of procedures. And if any complaints are there, if there are any donations, to mediate those kind of procedures, make a help desk in the Ministry of Health. But still, it's not been placed.
Dr. Hansamal, we're in the final few minutes of this show. People who are watching this program might probably be wondering, what can we do to at least assist in some way to get out of this health crisis, among many other crises that are going on. Of course, the people who are watching us might not have specialist knowledge in this subject. They might not be medical practitioners. So in your view, as far as this health crisis is concerned, what can the people do?
Actually, what can people do? That's a good question. The problem is that if they can support the Government Medical Officers Association and other organizations that are pushing the ministry and the other parties to, that means
to get these policy changes through.
Policy changes through and rectify these issues. So if they can give the support to us, so we can make a good force and show our power to the government and make these things a reality in the ground level. And these things, if these 10 proposals, then 10-fold proposals, if they can implement these things, so more than 50% of this issue will be reduced. The burden of the people will be reduced. As an example, if we can take down the dark drugs, that the most urgent drugs, into a shortlisted, and if we can talk with the other drug companies and give them a significant price reduction, which can be done at the moment, comparing to the dollar rates and all.
That could solve this problem to a certain degree. Doctor, just one final question, if I can just scooch this in just before we end our program. We're in the final few minutes, of course. There are a lot of incidents in the health sector that go unreported. People have nowhere to turn. Sometimes they might go and inform the hospital authorities, but the hospital authorities would dismiss their claims because that will be a problem to them. Can they contact the GMOA and complain about it? Yeah,
definitely. Anytime they can contact the GMOA,
and they can find the contact details of the GMOA
we
online.
Have the website. We have the website, Facebook page. You can anytime contact GMOA. And
thank you very much, Dr. Hansamal Weerasuriya, a General Committee member of the Government Medical Officers Association, for coming on our program. I know there is much more to be said, much more to be discussed about this crisis. It's far from over. It began quite a long time ago, but today we are feeling the real depth and suffering the real consequences of this crisis. Stay tuned to Newsline. We will continue to bring details of these burning issues that Sri Lanka is facing right now. Thank you very much for tuning in. Until we meet again, take care and God bless.